One of the major projects we had embarked upon was the construction of an annex at the Sir Lee Llewellyn Moore Judicial and Legal Complex on East Independence Square. That building is nearing completion. We hope that it will be completed in August. We had hoped to have done so in April, but there were some problems brought on by the COVID response. What we have in there is that you'll have a third magistrate's chamber being commissioned for District A. We would also want to commission for the first time a mediation center in that building. Mediation really is a process by which people who have disputes before the High Court, the Civil High Court, would be able to find a mechanism to reduce those disputes, to settle them, assisted by mediators, but it allows us to settle matters in non-contentious way before, in order to reduce, as it was, and speed up the whole process of settling disputes. The third will be a law library, and this is an exciting project. For the first time, we have wanted for many, many years to have a law library available that will be open to the public and to practitioners and various stakeholders. It will be an important addition to administration of justice. Somebody who's a litigant in person, who maybe not wanting to have a lawyer, can go there and research their matter and be able to prepare for court challenges and that type of stuff. We have appointed last year the former senior magistrate, Mrs. Josephine Manalou Webb, to be a law commissioner to the Law Commission. Work has still to be done to fill out the commission properly, but we will be working over the next few months to ensure that this law commissioner, that she can then work with others. The Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs is the beneficiary of the purchase by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis of the former CNC building on George Street, next just opposite the Judicial and Legal Complex. And that we feel will be a new legal complex for the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, in that it will house the Law Commission. It will also house the Land Registry. What is exciting about this work with the Land Registry is that it forms part of a project where we have been working to create a cadastre of all of the land in St. Kitts and Nevis. Basically what it means is that we have done a flyover by drones. We have been able to take pictures, visual pictures of the lands in St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Kitts, all around St. Kitts. And these now have to be converted so that all of the land can be identified. There would have been challenges by the Labour Party, the opposition parties, Labour Party in St. Kitts, the NRP in Nevis, where some 3 very critical court cases were filed and served after nomination day, so that with 7 days to go, you had this major case. The first one was where the state of emergency was challenged as being unfair to the opposition party. And then with 1 or 2 days to go to the actual voting, 2 other challenges came forth. One by 2 voters in constituency number 4, who, in addition to they themselves and 4 other individuals who supported them by affidavit. They attempted to have some 184 names put onto the voters' register, number 4. And then while that was going on the 4th of June, another challenge was set down. And in that challenge, it was a question of where one of the candidates in Nevis, Dr. Kelvin Daly, and a voter there, requested the court to intervene in the long-standing boundaries matter, and in an attempt to have that struck down or withdrawn or dismissed for want of prosecution and for an abusive process of the court. Also in that first case too, that ZIZ, access to ZIZ media by parties, that was a major question that was settled, because it meant that for the first time ever in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, that all political parties, all political candidates who had been nominated would have access to the state-owned media to voice for free. To the question of observers, overseas observers, who the government had invited to come initially. We invited observers from the Commonwealth Secretariat, from the OAS, and from CARICOM. Ultimately, we were able to make arrangements to have CARICOM, our regional partners, send a team to St. Kitts and Nevis, and they were in quarantine, they stayed at OTI. But special arrangements were made by the medical team that allowed them to carry out their function as independent observers. They have written, as has our local observers, emphasizing that the elections that were done here in St. Kitts and Nevis were free and fair, and were free from fear. And both sets of our observers have made those statements in official releases to date. It's important to understand the concept of team unity that evolved over the past 7 years or so, because we had had a 2-year period of grounding before we contested the 2015 elections. If you recall, we ran on a plank of prosperity, a prosperity agenda, as well as a good government agenda, a good governance agenda. This time around, when we come to government, we have had 5 years of performance in producing that prosperity agenda and of doing a number of things that form a solid basis for a good governance agenda. I have to point out the way in which Prime Minister Harris would have led his team in the management of the response to the health pandemic that affected us in St. Kitts, after having seen how it had ravaged many parts of the world, and the manner in which the electorate, the manner in which the public took to team unity and voted overwhelmingly for its candidates. Of course, St. Kitts and Nevis is tantamount to that confidence, that stamp of approval that the public had in what we had done. It was a high pressure period. Legislation in the Attorney General's chambers is drafted by parliamentary councils, Karen Hughes and Alison Isaac, and they have worked way beyond the call of duty in being able to be on call 24/7 during this period. There were days when there was a total lockdown where people had to be at home. And in some cases, we have had to have them get special permits to come to office at Church Street. As members of the Attorney General's chambers and staff, they would have been exempted. So it was a major team effort, starting with my council, parliamentary council, who would have done a number of these regulations, about 6, 7 of them, depending, and they were done for relatively short tranches of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on how we saw it. And they would be tweaked, they would be amended, they'd be changed, depending on the recommendations of the Chief Medical Officer and Dr. Laws and Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, the Medical Chief of Staff of the JNF Hospital.